Hello all you lovely people, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lou if you're new here. I'm a Manchester United fan, but we are not actually going to be talking about Manchester United today. So first of all, Manchester United is not going to win the league, so I need to get my joy from somewhere else at the moment. And obviously I don't want Liverpool, City, Arsenal to win the league. I mean, I understand that's the likely outcome, but it's not what I want in my life. So what I did was had a little look at the other teams that might sneak a win, might do a little upset. I mean, outside chance, probably unlikely, but I'm holding on to hope in here. And I realised that we have Bournemouth in 4th and Crystal Palace in 6th, and absolutely nobody is talking about these two teams. Like, they're doing really, really well. They're outplaying some of the bigger teams, and nobody's talking about them. There's no, like, on the really big content channels here on YouTube, nobody's talking about them. It's like, are they not glamorous enough for you? Is it because they're not part of the traditional big six? I don't know. But I love an underdog story, and at the moment they're underdogs, and I am pinning all of my hopes for the season on them since my team is over there trying to get its shit together. So I'm going to live through your teams for the moment, and that's what this video is going to be about. So I had a little bit of a look. I'm going to start with Bournemouth. I'm going to look at their season, how they're going, where the land lies, and then I'm going to have a little look at Crystal Palace. And then as I was going through the preparation work for this video, I realised these teams play each other in the next match, which was totally by accident. This was not meant to be a match preview. It's not really a match preview, but accidentally I've timed this video for when they're about to play each other. So there's a happy coincidence. So we're going to start with Bournemouth, okay? So Bournemouth, if you don't know, currently sit 4th in the Premier League. They have a +3 goal difference and they have 14 points, which is only 2 points behind top of the league, Arsenal. Makes me sad. Not only because I lived through the Fergie and Wenger era, my brother's an Arsenal supporter, which is obviously the worst part of the whole affair. So Arsenal are top of the league, but Bournemouth in 4th are only 2 points behind them, and they have a positive goal difference. That's not something I'm familiar with as a Manchester United fan at the moment, so congratulations, Bournemouth. They did have a pretty busy transfer window, lots in, lots out, and I suppose often when you see a busy transfer window like that, we talk about, okay, is it going to take some time for those players to settle in, to gel together, to become a team? Obviously, Bournemouth are doing pretty okay with that. It has not stopped them whatsoever. In fact, it might have even propelled them forward because people didn't know what to expect from them. Their current manager is Areola, one of the men of the moment. He joined Bournemouth from Rayo Vallecano. Apologies to all the people who know how to pronounce that properly. I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just not able to pronounce it. So he joined Bournemouth in June of 2023. He's currently contracted until 2026, which is obviously the end of the season. It's unusual to see a manager go into towards the end of their contract, so I would expect if they want to keep him, there's going to need to be some talks starting pretty soon. So prior to Areola joining them, in the 23-24 season, Bournemouth finished 12th. In his first season, which was 24-25, they finished 9th and got to the quarters of the FA Cup, and that was actually Bournemouth's highest ever finish in the Premier League, was 9th. So obviously really, really good. He went up 3 places and got around to the quarters in the FA Cup. So looking good so far. I've had a little look at their season to date. So obviously everybody has played 7 matches. I'm going to just go through the results and then I'll talk about them a little bit at the end, more as a collective rather than like blabbering through each match individually. So their first match, great opening match to have, was against Liverpool. They did lose that 4-2, but I actually watched that match. And the 4-2 doesn't feel like a fair reflection of that match at all. Bournemouth came out of the traps and they played a really, really good game. So even though it was a heavy loss, well, I say heavy, but 4-2, it's not so bad. They gave a good account of themselves, especially for the opening match of the season. They then went on to win 1-0 against Wolves. They went on to win 1-0 against... Did I say Wolves or Spurs? Anyway, Wolves and Spurs, they won 1-0 each. Brighton, they won 2-1. They then drew with Newcastle, drew with Leeds, and beat Fulham 3-1. Now, obviously, that's a bit of a mishmash of results there. They've got some wins, they've got some draws. They have that loss there to Liverpool. But they've played some tough opposition there, like Liverpool, Spurs, Brighton, Newcastle and Fulham are a surprise package this season as well. I mean, that's a pretty tough first 7 games and they've come out of it with 14 points. So obviously that's quite good going, and it's not as if, not that there is any easy games in the Premier League, but nobody can say they've had a good run of it as such. That there were some tough games. Now, even the results, I was trying to look to see, are they conceding a lot? Are they scoring a lot? It's just very, very mixed. Other than the Liverpool game, they seem to be pretty low scoring games. What I will say is that Semenyo who's fantastic, unbelievable this season, won't have a bad word about him. He is their top scorer with 6 goals, which is obviously very, very good. My thing is, their next top scorer only has 1 goal. So while Semenyo stays fit and scoring, Bournemouth are going to keep playing, you would imagine. But if Semenyo picks up an injury, if he picks up a red card, if he picks up too many yellows and he gets banned, if something happens to Semenyo, what are Bournemouth going to do? Because nobody else seems to be scoring goals, and obviously to win games you need to score goals. So that would be my concern if I was looking at, okay, where might they fall down? Where they do benefit is they're not in Europe this season, so they're playing less games than all of the teams around them, which obviously is going to help in terms of their fitness and keeping their players, including Semenyo, fit and doing well. So they seem to be going well. 4th is fantastic. Last season was their highest ever finish ever, and it was in Areola's first season before he'd really had more time with these players. So really, if they can get some other players firing, I don't see any reason why they can't continue and hopefully outdo all of my rivals. So fingers crossed for Bournemouth. Nice to see them doing well. Now, on to Crystal Palace, and shout out to our Twisted Baba, our resident Crystal Palace fan. Hopefully you're going to enjoy this section. So, Crystal Palace are currently 6th in the league with a +4 goal difference and 12 points. So they're actually only 4 points off Arsenal. Again, there's really not a big gap, between 1st and 6th. 4 points, if you get the right matches, isn't a huge amount. And especially if Arsenal start slipping up, if the above team starts slipping up, it's not as if they're trailing miles away and they've no chance, they're not in touching distance now. Obviously, it's more unlikely than Bournemouth just due to points, but so far so good. And the distance is certainly not unbreachable. They again did have a pretty busy transfer window, but probably the one of note for Crystal Palace was that they lost Eberechi Eze to Arsenal. Eze, another absolutely fantastic player, very devastated he went to Arsenal, would have absolutely loved him at United. Not that we would have known how to use him, would have destroyed him. So, a big loss for Crystal Palace. And I suppose for somebody who doesn't watch Crystal Palace all the time, I'm sort of looking at that going, okay, how are they going to cope without him? Obviously one player isn't the whole team, but when you lose a player like that, we saw with Isak as well in Newcastle, everybody was like, what are they going to do? Is the whole team going to collapse? So obviously not, because Crystal Palace are doing okay without him there, but that was probably the big one of note for them. Eze had 16 GA last season, and he was their 2nd top scorer after Mateta. So you can see why people were looking at that, keeping a watching brief on what was going to happen. Their current manager is another man of the moment, is Oliver Glasner. He joined Palace from the Bundesliga for the last 7 matches of the 24-25 season. They went on to win 6 out of 7 of those matches, and they placed 10th, which was their highest ever finish, with their highest ever points tally of 49 points. And so a lot of that credit was given to Glasner for the way they finished the season after he came in. In the 24-25 season, they did finish 12th, so they went down, but they got a tally of 53 points. So even though their position went down, their points actually went up. So they did better. It was just that the teams around them also did better. So, they're moving in the right direction, depending on if you value points tally or position more. The same points in a different season can get you a much higher position. So it's a hard one to call, but they certainly didn't go a massive step backwards. Obviously now this season, they've gone away up there. Now it's how sustainable that's going to be. Obviously Crystal Palace do have Europe. It's in the Conference League. That was a whole debacle in itself. Which part of Europe were they going to be in? But that obviously is going to impact how they're playing in the Premier League. And your first question is, how sustainable is what they're doing going to be? So first of all, I'm going to do what I did with Bournemouth. I'm going to have a little look at the matches that they've had to date. And then we'll have a little look at their top players, and then we'll have a little look at the match that's coming up between them. So their matches, they started off against Chelsea. They had a draw. It was 0-0 each draw. Forest, again, they drew. This one was a score draw. It was 1 each. Villa, they beat Villa 3-0. Considering the state Villa were in at the start of the season, it's hard to set much in store with that. Villa are now starting to sort of push on the accelerator a little bit, but they started the season like rocky, so it's hard to read that too much. They then went on to draw Sunderland 0-0. They beat West Ham 2-1. They beat Liverpool 2-1, and then they lost to Everton 2-1. So we had a lot of 2-1s in there, and we had a lot of draws in there. Very mixed bag, and probably not as hard of a start as Bournemouth have had if you compare the teams that they've been playing. But the standout result there is they beat Liverpool 2-1. I mean, even if you think Liverpool aren't all the way at the races and are not playing their best, some of their players like Salah maybe aren't firing on all cylinders, I mean, they're still title contenders. They're still a hard team to beat. I mean, I know because my team's going to face them now at the weekend, and I would not be confident of a 2-1 win. So I'm absolutely not going to write off any team that have beat Liverpool 2-1, whether they're, in fifth gear or not. So just to note that result, it's not that obviously Crystal Palace have had a bad start to the season, but you do have to look at the teams they've faced and Europe. How is Europe going to impact them going forward? Now, in contrast to Bournemouth, Crystal Palace are spreading the goals around. So you have Sarr with 3, Matesha with 2, and Guehi with 1. So that seems a little bit more sustainable. Obviously, you want to have a goal scorer, someone who's scoring the bulk of your goals, but you do then also want your team to chip in goals. So if that one person, if something goes wrong, if they hit a rough patch, if they're whatever it is, if they are not scoring all the goals, that the rest of the team are going to be able to pick that up. So that seems to be much more spread out in Crystal Palace, which I think is a good thing. Their top rated players though for the season so far, and this is according to SofaScore, so again Opta might be slightly different, or whatever sort of system you use might be slightly different. I like SofaScore. So the top rated players for the season so far are Guehi and Henderson. So Guehi obviously is the defender and Henderson is our goalkeeper. So you can see that when you look at these scores, they are conceding very few goals. There is not a lot of goals going in, and if they were able to score a few more goals, so again, if one of those players sort of stepped up and said, right, I'm going to be the lead goal scorer, and the others were still chipping in with their goals, some of those draws can quite easily become wins, and then you've got some extra points, and it happens just like that. We know the way it is in football. It can change just moments change games. So when your top rated players are 2 of your defence, because I would consider the goalkeeper part of your defensive structure and your defensive setup, obviously you're doing well at the back. What you need to kick on then is your front. So again, I'd be keeping an eye on where are the goals going to come from. Is someone going to take the bull by the horns? But yes, so I don't want to bore you with too many details. So that's basically just a brief look at how both teams are doing so far this season. Now, as I said, I accidentally planned this video for today. I didn't mean to do it, and then I saw that they were playing each other. So I actually think, given where they both are in the league, given that neither of them can really afford to be losing points at this stage, they both want to gain as much points as possible while some of the other teams still are trying to get themselves into gear. I think it's going to be a really interesting game. And I wonder if both of these teams are going to be looking at this as a really significant game in their season. So we often talk about, winning the league or top 4 or even at the bottom of the table, that these are 6-pointer games. These are the games that really matter. For me, in the Bournemouth Crystal Palace season, I think this is a 6-pointer. I think this game is going to really matter for both teams going forward, and it's very, very hard to call. It's really, really difficult to call who's going to win. So let me know what you think. Let me know, first of all, why do you think these teams aren't being talked about? They're doing really well. They have some really great players. Both of their managers are on everybody's radar, but nobody's talking about them. So why do you think that is? Are they just not cool enough? Are they not considered cool enough? And also, do you think that their form is sustainable? Do you think that they can keep it going? Do you think the fact that they're in Europe, out of Europe matters? What do you think happens if Semenyo gets injured? And let me know who you think is going to win the match. Thank you so much for joining me. Please hit a like for you, for me, for everybody who's made it this far into the video. And have a lovely weekend. Football's back.